What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Bloodborne commentary. Alright guys, we're back at it once again, and this time we are going to showcase a Battle of the Build series. Now, for a lot of you guys who are familiar with the channel, you guys have known me from the Dark Souls 1 days. This will not be a reoccurring series, but seeing that I just uploaded a Arcane oriented video, one wherein I articulated my gripes against the Arcane build, I figured that now that I finally found a really good Arcane player, that I just had to showcase it. I just had to showcase it to everybody, right? So before I get started, I'd like to send a thanks and a shout out to good old Sendokidu, right? And this is his Ulti build. This is how he, this is what he calls it, an Ulti build, U-L-T-I. Now, in the event that you're kind of interested in the stats, first off is level 82 based upon the stats that he gave me, with 36 in vitality, 19 endurance, 14 strength, 25 skill, 10 blood tinge, and 30 arcane. Now, you guys would notice that despite this guy having the amount of vitality that he has, he is really good when it comes to using this particular build, and having a lower amount of vitality doesn't slow him down at all. Now, keep in mind, there are a lot of people who are under the impression that we must ascend to 150. There are other people who feel like, that at least 30 to 40 endurance is necessary. There are also people who would argue that 45 to 50 vitality is necessary. But I'm one who believes that none of these things are necessary. Insofar as you create a good build, you practice with it, you take the time to learn some of the ins and outs of the game mechanics, and you play them to your best ability. So that being said, now keep in mind, this is what you guys are going to notice. Just for the purposes of showcasing his build, what I did was, the first few matches will be gemless, because I just want you guys to see how he's using it. He's using the torch, he's using poison knives, he's using regular knives, he's using it all. Fire bombs, rope fire bombs, arcane tools. He's making great use of the burial blade. And actually, speaking of the burial blade, one difference between his build and my own is that I went strictly arcane, which was 50, and he, on the other hand, uses a hybrid skill and arcane build. Now, although it's not a 100% arcane, I think the fact that he's using all these other items, consumables, and tools that scale so good with arcane is basically an arcane build. He just, pretty much prefers the burial blade, the claws, as you guys can see, and perhaps a few other weapons that he didn't showcase in this particular video. Right, so those are the stats. I gave a shout out. As far as pros and cons, basically the way he uses the build, speaks enough for itself. It's got a lot of pros. It has arcane, it has skill. He can use the burial blade, the blades of mercy. As you guys can see right now, he's using the claw. Arcane scales with the torch. The poison knives and the regular throwing knives scale with skill. So with all the tools that he's using, they all are able to scale with with either skill or arcane. So you can't really go wrong with this, right? And it's obvious that he's had a lot of practice with it, because one minute he's attacking with his weapon, next minute he's using tools, next minute he's throwing darts, next minute, he does the whole nine. And back when I first fought him in another gemless fight club probably about a week ago, I was impressed with it. You know, and I only fought him twice in that fight club. And after fighting him twice, you know, I sent him a message. I'm like, dude, we have got to hook up for some fights. I would love to showcase your awesome Arcane build. So gladly he accepted. And it's been on and popping ever since. So those are the pros. As far as the cons, I can't really say that there are a lot of cons. You know, now a person might want to argue, well, it's under leveled and that's a con. But I think that's kind of a pro, because seeing that his build is 82, I mean, imagine, you know, seeing with as much practice as he have had with it, seeing how he can employ it and seeing how useful he is with it. Imagine if he upgraded. You know, he's at 82 now. Imagine if he was another 18 levels. You know, he can put some of those points into vitality. Perhaps, you know, a small number of points into endurance. Perhaps more points into skill and more points, obviously, into Arcane. You know, and that's just, you know, assuming that he limited to 100. Let's just say he wants to go to 110, which personally, I would argue that 100 to 110 is great for this game, right? You don't have, you know, equipment load you have to worry about. I mean, and this is just me, you know, I know that there are a lot of people from, you know, other Souls games who are ascending higher, which, I mean, it is what it is. But me personally, I would say 100 to 110. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, he ascended to 110. I mean, that even maximizes his build even more. You know, perhaps a few more points in Arcane and a few more points in skill. Right, so if he's dangerous, you know, at level 82, I can only imagine what he would be at 100 or even 110. Now, another good thing that I noticed about him, he is really good with timing the use of these tools. He's also good with the charge attacks. You know, he does the short-term attacks, which is just basically an R2. Then he's good with timing the long-term attacks, you know, the one to where you hold it down so long that you actually hear a chime. I mean, because he caught me so many times, and because he was going back and forth so frequently between the short term and the long term, a lot of times it was hard for me to anticipate, you know, should I rush in and attack because it's a short term? Should I stay back in reserve because it's going to be a long term R2? You know, what exactly should I do? And I think it was really good that he was able to keep me on my toes as often as he was. Right? So those are the pros. Can't really say that many cons, and keep in mind I'm making my assessment based upon how he's using the build. Now, I'm pretty sure that if someone else were to use it, you know, they might need a little work, you know. And the reason why I say that is because he's doing everything. He's playing locked, he's playing unlocked, he's obviously switching between all the twos, and he's still actively engaging. Like, in other words, it's kind of hard to tell that he's switching back and forth between all these things because he's actively fighting. Far too many times, in my personal opinion, you're fighting someone who's doing nothing but sitting back in the background, waiting to come in and spam R1. But if you guys notice, he's not spamming R1. He's not dodging. He's actively engaging, and these are the type of fights that I really enjoy. Alright, so that's pretty much it about that build. Alright, so I guess I'll take the time to talk a little bit about my own. Basically, it's a strength build. Well, actually, let me take that back. For the gymless fights, I'm using my strength build. Nothing special. You guys have seen that before. I showcased it in the video about a week ago, right? I make use of the hammer, obviously. Ligarius's wheel. I have a few weapons. I mean, stake driver. I think I make use of about 6 weapons with this build. You know, pros and cons. I mean, as far as pros, I have 50 vitality. I have 50 strength. You know, I have 10 in Arcane, which would allow me to use the wheel. And I have 20 endurance. Those are the stats for it. Now, pros. I mean, I can really maximize the use of my strength weapons by having 50. I have a lot of vitality. You know, with the way that I use my runes, I have 1897 HP. You know, now, Personally, I've been using 20 in endurance ever since I had the game. Now, I know some people, you know, they're arguing for at least 30 and 40. I think that just really depends upon your own play style. Like, if you're the type that is constantly, you know, dodging and swinging and R1 spamming and dodging and dodging and dodging like a chicken with your damn head cut off, perhaps you may need 30 or 40. But 20 for me with the appropriate runes, I mean, I'm good to go. You just have to practice stamina management as you had to do in Dark Souls and Demon Souls. So although some people may find that as a crutch, I mean, not a crutch, but as a handicap, I personally don't have a problem with 20. Like I said before, I've been using 20 ever since the game was released. So cons, I mean, I guess, you know, the only con, you know, would be the 20 in endurance. But then again, it depends upon your play style. If you're the type of person who have always used a lot of endurance since the release of the game, of course you might find 20 to be challenging. But I started off with 20. So with me starting off at 20, I have always played the game in such a way to where I'm comfortable with it. So for me, 20 is not an issue. Not an issue at all. I mean, besides that, the only limitations or weaknesses, you know, that I can think of for this build are the weaknesses that come with the player, right? For the most part, and it's kind of like the same to be said with his build. So that's about it. I mean, I know I said in the beginning of the video this will not be a reoccurring series, and the main reason, you know, I hear far too many people making this argument about the lack of variety. Now, I will agree with the lack of variety argument, but at least for me, I'm saying it for a different reason than some people are saying it. Now, what exactly do I mean? For a lot of you guys who have known me since Dark 1, you will know that I always used a lot of weapons. Always. Dark Souls 1, I mean, I never only stuck with the Dex build. I never only stuck with the 2840. Never only stuck with the Leo Ring build. I mean, I had the Faith Mage. You know, I have videos of that on my channel. I have a Pyro Cleric. You guys have seen that on my channel. Leo Ring videos, I've done that on the channel. 4040, which is one of my favorite. 2840, which is another one of my favorite on Dark Souls 1. I've done pretty much all of them. I mean, I have a 40 intelligence, 30 faith. You know, in Dark Souls 1, one thing that I really hated is with all the weapons, all the armors, and all the possibilities, that most people stuck to, you know, what they call the meta, which in the beginning of the game for a long time was the Pyro Dex, which you can't even really call it Pyro Dex. Basically what it was is a frippy katana with great combustion and black flame. I mean, let's just call it what it was. And the reason why I say that is 9 times out of 10 they were not using Dex weapons other than the katana. So it's almost like wrong to call it a Pyro Dex. Dex would imply you're basically using a wide variety of dexterity weapons, to which most of them didn't. So after seeing this for as long as it existed, I came up with the Battle of the Build series. Now, in the event that you guys are new to the channel, you have no clue what the Battle of the Build series is, and perhaps, you know, and maybe to others, if you're new to Dark Souls and you just kind of want to get some ideas on PvP builds, I'll go ahead and drop a link to that playlist in the description box, and you guys can check it out for yourself. And the funny thing about it is, you guys will even hear way back in 2012, 2013, some of the same things that I'm talking about, variety now, I was talking about then. So that's definitely one thing that I've always been consistent about. So for players like me, I am kind of disappointed at the variety of weapons. But for a lot of these other guys who are saying it, but when you really look at their track record, it's kind of interesting. Because some people who are complaining about variety, look at the builds that they used in Dark Souls 1. It was the same build for a long time, you know. And this whole meta problem, And Dark Souls, not only did it exist in Dark Souls 1, but it also existed in Demon Souls. Maybe not necessarily with the armor sets, but let's just look at some of the more popular weapons in PvP. It was the Dragon Bone Smasher, the S-Dot, the ridiculous katana with the push lock, some forms of a halberd, no matter, what they may be, and the Northern Regalia for a lot of those Vitality Gouge builds. It was the same thing for the most part. Many weapons, PvPers for the most part only use a small selection. So once again, it's kind of interesting that so many people are crying about the lack of variety when you look at, the builds they had in the past. It wasn't really that much variety, but it is what it is. So enough rambling about the lack of variety and this being the only Battle of the Build series, because like I said before, I fought this guy in a gymless fight club, and I said, you know what, I have got to get this guy so everyone can kind of check out how he's using the build, because I really think he did an awesome job. So I'll let you guys go ahead and check out the rest of these fights. There's like 3 more to the end of the video. And hey, thanks again for your participation in this one Battle of the Build series. And hey, until next time, Martyrs Brigade is